In a small, forgotten village, tucked away in the heart of a dense forest, there lived a young boy named Kofi. Life in this village was as simple as it was harsh. There were no paved roads, no schools, and no hospitals, just a cluster of modest huts made of mud and thatch. Kofi's family was among the poorest. His father had passed away when Kofi was just a baby, leaving his mother, Ajoa, to raise him on her own. She worked tirelessly on the nearby farmland, often skipping meals so that Kofi could have something to eat. Kofi was a quiet child. He spent most of his days helping his mother in the fields or wandering near the edge of the forest, lost in thought. Though they owned little, Kofi was rich in dreams. He often imagined what life might be like beyond the village, a world with big cities, tall buildings, and endless possibilities. But for now, his reality was the cracked walls of their small hut and the constant struggle to survive. One fateful evening, dark clouds gathered ominously over the village. The air was thick, and the wind howled like an angry spirit. The villagers knew a storm was coming, but no one could have anticipated its fury. By nightfall, torrential rain began to pour, and the winds grew so fierce that they tore the roofs off homes and uprooted the few sturdy trees that had stood for decades. Kofi and his mother huddled together in their tiny home, clutching each other as the storm raged outside. The walls shook, and water seeped in through every crack. Ajua whispered words of comfort to her son, even as fear gripped her heart. By the time dawn broke, the storm had passed, but its devastation was clear. The once bustling village was in ruins. Fields were flooded, livestock had perished, and many families, including Kofi's, were left homeless. Their modest hut was nothing more than a pile of mud and debris. With no roof over their heads and no food to eat, Kofi and his mother faced their darkest days. To make matters worse, Ajua fell gravely ill from the cold and exposure. Kofi, only 10 years old, found himself in a position he never thought he'd be in, the caretaker of his ailing mother. Desperate to save her, Kofi ventured out into the ruined village, searching for help. Days turned into weeks, and their struggles only deepened. Just when Kofi was beginning to lose hope, a miracle arrived in the form of a truck filled with strangers. These were volunteers from a nearby city who had come to help the villagers rebuild their lives. They brought food, blankets, medicine, and most importantly, hope. Summoning all his courage, Kofi approached the volunteers, his small frame trembling and his cheeks streaked with tears. He told them his story of his father's death, his mother's illness, and their desperate need for help. The volunteers were deeply moved by the boy's bravery and determination. One of them, a kind man named Mr. Allen, knelt down and placed a reassuring hand on Kofi's shoulder. "We're here to help," Mr. Allen said gently. True to their word, the volunteers provided medicine for Ajua and helped rebuild their home. But Mr. Allen saw something in Kofi, something beyond his immediate needs. He saw potential. "Kofi," Mr. Allen said one evening as they sat by the fire, "do you go to school?" Kofi shook his head. "There's no school here, sir. I've never learned to read or write." Mr. Allen smiled. "Well, how about I teach you? Education can open doors you never knew existed." Kofi's eyes lit up with a mix of excitement and disbelief. He eagerly accepted the offer, and from that day forward, Mr. Allen became his mentor. Each evening, after the day's work was done, Mr. Allen would teach Kofi how to read, write, and solve basic math problems. The boy's hunger for knowledge was insatiable. He carried a small notebook everywhere, scribbling down new words and phrases he learned. Years passed, and Kofi's determination only grew stronger. When he was old enough, Mr. Allen helped him secure a scholarship to attend a school in the nearby city. It was a world unlike anything Kofi had ever known: bustling streets, tall buildings, and classrooms filled with eager students. Though it was intimidating at first, Kofi thrived. He excelled in his studies, particularly in engineering, which combined his love for building things and solving problems. After graduating with honors, Kofi could have stayed in the city and pursued a lucrative career, but his heart remained in the village, where his journey had begun. He returned home, determined to make a difference. Using his knowledge and skills, he helped rebuild homes, constructed a proper school, and designed a water system that provided clean drinking water for the entire community. The boy, who had once been overlooked, became a hero in the eyes of his people. Children looked up to him, and parents spoke his name with pride. Kofi's mother, who had recovered from her illness, often watched her son with tears of joy, grateful for the man he had become.